I'm with Heiko Schmidt today, who is the founder and CEO of AI for Life, which is an amazing company that's doing really innovative things in helping prevent teenage suicide using artificial intelligence. So, welcome, Heiko.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
You're very welcome. So, maybe before we get into your incredible solution, shall we start with just telling me a little bit about yourself and your background?
I'm an entrepreneur by heart, so what can I say? I started companies when I was very young, and I added a lot of other companies. I sold companies, I grew companies. I started in the music space and then diversified into other areas of expertise, in particular in data science. Then eventually, and that's my background basically.
So the data science leads into this nicely. And could you maybe tell me a little known unusual fact about yourself?
Yeah, what most people don't know is that I'm actually a musician.
Oh,
So,
okay. What
my
kind of
parents,
instruments?
my parents are classical musicians. So when I was little, I grew up with all that symphonic orchestra performances.
Wow.
And then I started becoming a classical piano player, and I actually studied it for 20 years in special schools. So I became quite good in it.
Let's shift to your AI powered solution. Could you
Mhm.
tell me about what it is? What does this do?
Mhm. We have to start with the problem,
Okay.
and the main problem in mental health is four, four things. So one is connectivity. So people just don't find the right practitioner to get help
Mm-hmm.
in any shape or form. So that's really difficult. It's not really sorted or ordered. I mean, there's many companies are trying, but it's kind of an you know
Yeah.
diffuse field, and you don't have a one to go where you can go. The second part is affordability. So most people in let's say America and even in Canada or in Europe, they have to pay outside of socialized medicine for mental health services, and they have to pay cash, and that's an affordability problem.
Yeah.
Many people in the US, and that's horrible, but it is what it is. 60% cannot afford it,
Yeah.
and that's a huge problem. And then the third problem that you have is that the routing from the problem you have to the solution is a problem. So people just cannot find the appropriate way how they can take their journey, their mental health journey. So they are not educated to that. So what they see is, oh, I have symptoms, or I
Yeah.
have bipolar disorder. And then, they try wildly, to ask Dr. Google about it, and you have so much bad advice
Yeah.
too
Yeah.
in the internet. So that's a huge problem. And the third problem is the outcome quality.
Yeah.
So outcome quality is, and that is our biggest focus here, and that's why I'm saying that only 6% of people getting a successful treatment.
And is that
Mm.
for if someone is suicidal,
That
or is
means,
that mental health in general?
yeah, in general, mental
Okay.
health in general, only 6% get successfully treated. That means that 94% don't. So,
Yeah.
and what the reality is that it's trial and error.
Yeah.
So you go, to a doctor, and then he's trying something that doesn't work, and then you go to another one, you're trying, it doesn't work. And that is, think about if that would happen in physical health.
Yeah.
Please think about you have a heart problem and you go to a cardiologist or a heart surgeon, and he's trying something, it doesn't work, and then you go to the next one, you're
Yeah.
trying, and that is the main problem. What most people don't talk about is that in mental health there is no existing objective data where you can compare things with each other and can actually build a science on top of it.
Yeah.
So it's all observational and psychology. It's all opinionated. It's biased in many things, so on that results in different treatment suggestions, and also in different drug prescriptions, and most of them they don't help.
Yeah. And so your solution now is addressing that in a way that will be creating vital signs for mental health.
Yeah, so what we did is we started, talking about it, and I have a daughter, and my daughter actually became depressed and suicidal teenage daughter, and that is when my life started, turning around. So I'm coming from the AI space, so I was in AI monetization, and I worked with many AI researchers and entrepreneurs together, and then my daughter became depressed and suicidal, and then the school told me I had to take her out because she's a risk for others and for herself. And that's when my journey started. Means as a parent, you just, you have to take it. Means what can you do, right? And then we literally, and we lived in California, in Southern California at the time. We literally spent $10,000s of dollars on therapists and psychiatrists and all the kind of stuff, and nothing has worked.
Yeah.
And that is the point where we started talking with the researchers and the real people who actually professionals in that segment to learn more about what could be a solution which actually works.
Yeah.
And so I learned from the best, to say that, from veteran affairs, the top researchers, and from Army, and from school districts in Los Angeles, and from UCLA, and researchers from other universities. And it finally, you talk with everyone, and then you see, okay, so here is the main solution for that problem. The first is you have to connect people to the right help. So that's a simple one, right?
Yeah.
This is common sense, but it doesn't exist in the world yet, right? So you have to connect the right people. And then the second is you have to connect them to the right treatment. But how they can know
the right data for the right treatment.
They don't, right? And the practitioner either, because he's offering a wide range of help, usually as a all-rounder, and say, hey, you know what, I can tell you about and tell me your problem, and then we will figure it out. And that's not a scientific approach, right? So that's a kind of a human approach, and I understand that this is possible, but that's not how it works. So basically, it comes down to a point that to say, if you want to do it scientifically, and if you want to advance that forward, you have to create vital sign data. And the vital sign data is similar to in physical health. If you take the blood pressure, or if you take the heartbeat, the heart rhythm, right, the EKG, and all the stuff we have in physical health is vital sign data. Even if you go to the doctor, he takes your temperature, all the kind of stuff, right? And because we have that data, and we have the treatments and the results of the treatments, and that is published, everyone else can learn from it and can say, okay, if I have that high blood pressure, and if I have that heartbeat, and blah, 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 and that treatment has worked for, let's say, 990,000 people, then most likely my patient who has the same vital sign or vital signs, should try this approach because it has worked for the same cohort, right?
Yeah.
That is the scientific approach we are going for. And so we started with that, thinking about how can we non-invasive create that vital sign data.
Yeah.
And that is where AI comes into play. So in vital sign data in mental health is, and that's how we approach it. That's machine vision algorithms, and that's other algorithms you have in this. I can embed in an app on a cell phone, right? So you have the camera, you have the microphone, you have the touch screen. You can use that sensors everyone else has, right? And while you're communicating with your practitioner in a teleconsulting setting, right? And we can record that. Not the video, but the data we capture, right? So that's algorithms who actually in one, many of them, but one is microfacial expressions.
Wondering, right?
So you have microfacial expressions, you analyze everything, you smile or and then over time, sure, you can fake your face and you can smile, but only for a short period of time. Over time, you cannot, and if you take the data 15 times per second over an hour conversation, then you have enough data to say, okay, the guy or the patient became more happy or more sad or more. You see, when someone is talking, you can bring context in. Practitioners asking a question, and then you see the emotional reaction in your face, right? And you can bring that in context to each other. And microfacial expressions are just one thing we do. This is in different categories. We can analyze body language. We can analyze, as an example, if you are angry, right?
Yeah.
And then usually you raise your voice because you're angry, and you shout to someone. Two things happen. One is we analyze your voice, not what you speak, of course what you speak, but also how your voice sound is, right? In relative to your other voice sound, which is the normal
baseline.
So if you go up and you more volume and more angry and more shouting, then we can register that, right?
Yeah.
Because it's just volume. But what also interesting is if you are really outraged, your oxygen level is falling because you're outraged.
Okay.
And that changes the pixel color of your face. And that is what machine vision algorithms can capture. So that's, there's many things like body language. If you look this and say, and you do that all the time, this is a signal you can see. Or if someone sits straight and looks forward, right? We capture that. But there's many signals we take in that particular approach. And if you bring that together, that is just vital signs. It's like blood pressure, and that's like your weight and your body temperature and so on, right? This is not a solution for you, but at least you have the data.
You at least can know if someone is talking about suicide, are they likely to do it or not? You might be able to get that kind of predictions, do you think?
That's too early for that. We don't have enough data for that yet. Because you need a lot of participants to see the patterns. And say, okay, if this thing happens and if the psychological makeup is exactly like 900 other people who committed suicide later on, then you have that predictor, scientifically speaking. But to have that, you have to have people participating.
How many data points do you think you're going to need for those kind of things?
Depends, and it is not what I'm looking for. Number of data points. Everyone is saying, oh, I have 10 trillion, 10 whatever, gigatrillion data points. It doesn't matter. The quality of the data points matters. That's one thing. And the second is you have to have enough people participating with the same makeup. Let's be extreme, right? So you have only positive people who are signing up for your platform, right? And you have one guy who is actually completely negative and want to suicide. You cannot compare that. Even if you have,
enough data points on the negative side, of course.
Some positive people. So you have to, and that is what AI is good too. So on the pattern side, what you can see, you see that data ocean, call it data ocean, right? So it's for human beings, it's impossible to analyze. But AI can do that with machine learning. And so they see the patterns. So they see, okay, here's a pattern where A and B, has C, and then you see the patterns, and then you can go back to the researchers, to the human research, and say, oh, you know what? I have seen that pattern. Right? Do we want to do research on that pattern because the algorithms found it, but humans have to interpret it. Humans have to analyze what that means and what we can learn from it. So that's not an automated process of like, okay, AI algorithms can make you smart all the way down and we don't need humans. No, This is just a helper for two things. The one is the patient. Patient wants to know, am I doing better or not?
Yeah.
Let's say you get a drug or therapy or whatever, right? And over time, let's say you have every week you have a conversation with your therapist, and every week we measure that, right? And then we compare that to, and then we can say the therapy has worked because all that data together shows me that the patient is actually getting better.
Yeah. So the data you've got is things like microfacial expressions, body language. Do you include language itself, things like that?
Yeah.
You do?
Language, and there's many other things we do. As an example, when my daughter became really depressed, oftentimes in the middle of the night, she's a heavy phone user, usually, right?
Yeah.
But then when she gets really depressed, the usage gets less and less, and then she stops using it at all.
Yeah.
That's a horrible sign, right?
Yeah.
So if you can capture that, that someone is not even his cell phone anymore, when the baseline was, I'm using that 90% of the time, then something is wrong.
Yeah. Interesting.
Right? So that's all, and that is how people are using the phone, right?
Yeah.
This is this simple, sensor, how we call it, right?
And so how do you measure, how do you record all of this data? So is it with wearables like Internet of Things, or how do you do it?
No, it's just with your cell phone.
Just with the cell phone? Oh, that's really cool.
Yeah, it's with the camera, with the microphone, and the touch screen of your phone. That's it.
Nice. Okay. That's really nice.
No wearable, nothing, because we have realized that wearable have one flaw. People have to wear it.
Yes. And nowadays, your cell phone, everyone wears their cell phone all the time. People don't leave anywhere without it.
Exactly. Everyone is there all the time. And that's a non-invasive way to capture all that data.
Nice.
And here is, and just to make that clear for everyone who watches that episode, is we have a rule here, and that's our main rule. We will never change that rule. Okay. Whatever we capture is not the video recording. We capture the data only, right? And the data belongs to the patient and to no one else.
Yeah.
Not even to us.
Yeah.
So I'm saying that because in the US it's different. In the US, whoever captured that, whoever hosts that, whoever housed the data is technically the legal owner of it.
Yeah.
And I think that's not right.
I agree. I think in the future it should really be people own their own data, patients own their own data, people in general, and they then give permission for specific use cases. Yeah. Exactly.
So what we do is basically before you start, if you go to our marketplace, you find a practitioner, you purchase, let's say, a specific solution, and then before you start, teleconsulting like we do right now, there's a screen asking a patient and say, okay, are you okay with that we record that? And then we tell them exactly what we record.
Yeah.
And then the second question is, are you okay to share that with the provider you're talking with?
Yeah.
Right? And the third one is, do you want to donate this data, depersonalized data, to research purposes?
Yeah.
So we give people a choice and say, okay, I want to help the greater good, right?
Yeah.
I'm asking you for help, right? And in return, I want to help the greater good by donating my data, depersonalized data, to research purposes. And depersonalized means really depersonalized. There's
no person identifiable.
Nothing. It's really depersonalized. And it's not your video also that someone could identify you, that's just the data capture. And that's why it's depersonalized. And if you donate that on our platform, you get something in return. Of course, you get some extra discounts and extra points and so on to reward people who help the greater good. And then that comes actually to a point you mentioned in the very beginning, before we started that interview, which comes to pharma and how can pharma be involved.
Yeah.
Right? And we are working with Bayer Bayer is an advisor of our company, but this is how we imagine that can be of good use for pharma companies. So there's two problems pharma companies have in general. The one is they have to acquire patients for a specific clinical trial.
Yes.
And to acquire these patients, they need to know the makeup exactly, and they have to make another group to compare it. And so that is what they need. And it costs a lot of money, a lot of time. And then every clinical trial I learned, and that's a number just my friend from Bayer gave me, it's $1 million per clinical trial per day. So you can imagine if the clinical trial runs for 3 years or so, it's $1 billion in all settings until you get FDA approval. And to help them to shortening the time is all what they think every single day. So how can we be smarter? How can we shortening the time frame to help more people earlier? Right? And also save money, of course, because that's bottom line risk, right? And this is the way how they can help, because we can tell them, oh, we found a pattern, a specific pattern, which might be interesting for you, right? We want to make a project out of it, right? So, and then they can use the depersonalized data and the pattern we found, and can use that actually for many things. One is, going deeper into it. What is the cause of it? How can we develop a drug or therapy, digital therapy, to help patients to get better, and also to acquire the potential groups you need to have for the clinical trial to run through to get FDA approval. So because we can build the cohorts so that they can acquire them directly, can say, hey, here's an opportunity, you're a patient, are you interested to participate? This is what they do for living every single day.
And then the other interesting aspect that you made me just think about is, in the data that you're collecting, it would be incredibly fascinating to also record what medications they're taking, because what you could then do is actually predict, based on all of your vital signs for this, which patients are doing better on which drug brands, actually. So you could almost start to identify the right patients for the right drugs, potentially, considering all these kind of interesting things that you are collecting. So even past the clinical trial phase, in the sales and marketing phase, marketers are always wanting to segment, both doctors and patients, but, they want the best for the best outcome for the patient. And so if you can niche your marketing to the right patient for your drug that's going to have the best outcome, everyone would love that, particularly companies in this space.
Exactly. And we want, our mission is to help people, right? So this is our mission, the bottom line. And whatever helps them to get to the right solution as quick as possible is our mission. Give you. We talked before we started on different kind of mental health diseases, including polarized disorders and so on. It takes 13.2 years on average to diagnose bipolar disorder.
Yes.
And that's a British study. So 13.2 years. So can you imagine the suffering of these people?
Yes.
You did try and error and try and error and try and error again. And completely devastated after 13.2 years on average, then finally get a diagnosis of bipolar.
I know someone who was in exactly that situation, who they took so long before they were diagnosed, and it was heartbreaking.
And the whole family suffers with them. And that is what, we're talking patient here all the time, but, I'm a father of a daughter, so I'm sorry. So I'm suffering too. I'm really suffering, and my wife is suffering, and her siblings are suffering, and everyone is really concerned every day. And that is why I'm thinking, we have to combine forces, and your approach, to bring, pharma or every other one to the table who might be able to help is the right one. That's why we call all for life. So it's all of us, right?
Yeah, totally.
It takes a village to raise a child, and in that particular case, it really takes all of us.
Yeah.
I want to give you one example because you asked for suicide.
Mm-hmm.
One of our advisors is a 2-star Army general, and he commanded the Fort Bragg in Texas. Why I'm saying that is because the suicide rate in that fort was the highest in the country. This guy brought the suicide rate down from the highest in the country to the lowest in the country in 2.5 years. Oh. And what I learned from him, and he's one of our advisors, is amazing. So bottom line is, they have combined different kind of community programs so that even volunteers can help. It's not about the therapist. It's not about the psychiatrist or that one single part in the whole kind of occasion. That's all of us, right?
Yeah.
So they created community programs where friends can talk with them in difficult situations, or colleagues, or whatever parts, or family, and they encourage them to actively go to the person who suffers and offer help and say, hey, look, you're not alone, do you want to talk?
Yeah.
And in America there is one company who is embracing talk therapy, and talk therapy is basically, that's what it is, right? So you go in, you don't have anyone to talk, and there is someone who actually steps up and invests his time and listen to what you have to say, which is so important these days.
Absolutely.
It's always important. But the bottom line is, he managed to do that with that kind of community programs. And I learned from that, and I said, okay, what if we could go out to everyone out there, to moms, or to everyone out there in the world, right?
Yeah.
And say, look, maybe you are suffering already because a loved one or friend or colleague, is mentally ill, right?
Yeah.
But you can step up. You can step up by offering your help as a volunteer. You can say, hey, I'm here. I may be, not an expert, but I'm here and I want to invest that 1 hour of my daytime just to give back and to help other people and help them, just talking. I give you a concrete example. My daughter, I tried everything, and we spent $10,000s on a specialist. Nothing helped. Nothing. After 2 years, she was behind her high school. There's a Boys and Girls Club, and then from the Pepperdine University, which is a university close by, psychology students volunteered in that club to help teenagers to just talk and helping them over their difficulties. And my daughter was there, and it was for free. And she talked 4 hours. And then she came back home and she said, that was the best talk I've ever had. She said, that was completely changing for me. And she was uplifted, and I said, okay, what was so different from all the other therapists and psychiatrists and so on? And she said, you know what, she's just a little older than me, and she was telling me she went through similar kind of experiences, and she told me how to overcome that, and it was like a talk between friends,
That's very interesting.
And this student wasn't even qualified or licensed, or she was an undergrad student from the university. And I thought, okay, we can understand that, and we can say, okay, what we need is outcome. Outcome is everything, right? And if that helps my daughter, I'm completely in, right? And if that student is not licensed, I don't care.
The outcome is the best,
As long as it helps her, and she's not suiciding, mission accomplished, completely accomplished, right? And this is what we try to do on our marketplace, is that we embrace everyone and say, you can step up, You can even ask for money. You can make money for yourself. You can make some income by selling some services, or you can volunteer and offer that for free. It's fine too.
Yeah.
But our mission is to bring people together and to help each other, and that's basically what it is.
Yeah. And so I think really what would be amazing is for every therapist and every person that's working in this space to be able to access that kind of data that you're collecting on these patients, because the outcomes by using their training alongside actual, like a doctor has vital signs for most areas, you know, the psychiatrist or psychologist could have vital signs for this, and it would improve the outcomes dramatically if they had access to that kind of data.
The thing with access is, we have to be careful with that. There's two-way approach. The one is to say, okay, I make everything public and everyone can access that. There's a lot of things you can misuse that data for and misinterpret the data and develop wrong policies out of it and so on and so on.
Yeah.
So what we're trying to do is a second approach by saying, okay, we want to have qualified people going after the patterns. The data itself is just an ocean.
Yeah.
So what do you want with an ocean? It means no one has the tools and
I meant the analyzed data, not the ocean.
Not even Google, right?
Yeah,
so the point is, you have to be more focused and more specific, right? And when the AI has found a pattern, that is a thing. When we reach out to people specifically, that could be researchers from universities, or let's say practitioners who have a specialty in that particular thing. If there is let's say the best 3 guys in bipolar disorder in the world, right? We found a pattern for that.
Yeah.
Then I would reach out to them and then would say, hey, we found that pattern. We cannot explain it. Are you willing to engage and do research? Maybe combine your efforts, and do research on that together. And I leave it up to them to publicize that, because they want to protect their work and they invest time and money into it to bring it to an explanation, to an intelligence product, what we call it. The AI is just delivering the pinpointers, but you have to create an intelligence product. And the intelligence product out of that data has to be created by experts. And whoever that expert is, it could be in pharma, it could be military, it could be in government, everywhere. But we need the experts to focus on that, and then their work has to be protected somehow. Otherwise, they wouldn't invest into it.
Yeah. And then what would be, I guess I'm just thinking, how could we get more patients want to use the system and donate their data to it? Do you have some kind of outreach or marketing program to get more patients involved?
Super question. Thank you very much for that. That's always the problem,
Okay.
One of the biggest problems I forgot in the very beginning is acceptance. So people oftentimes, they feel there's something wrong maybe, but until they get to acceptance and seeking help, that takes a step, right?
Okay.
So to explain what the outreach is, I was in London and I was speaking in front of 300 people, and I asked one question. I said, how many of you know someone, a family member or a close friend or a colleague who suffers from mental health conditions? Just raise your hand. And the interesting part was everyone was raising their hand.
Wow.
So in that whole room, there was like 300 people all raising their hands.
Yeah.
Right? And then the second part was, I could ask, would you spend your own hard-earned money to help them to get better? Because knowing someone is one thing, but actually actively helping them is another level, right? So, and 9 out of 10 actually raised their hands.
Nice.
So what we believe is that our outreach is mainly to everyone, and in particular to moms, to be honest, because moms observe the family, moms have the health responsibility in the family usually. They also make health decisions when it comes to the family, including what to invest and where. And so actually what we're trying to find is moms who want to step up as volunteers or want to become part. We have a program where they can make money with that as well. So we have affiliate programs and so on. So that's a lot of stuff. We can help each other, means moms on the one side to making some side income and also helping other people to get the help they need. And also from our end, helping everyone for the same reasons and also increasing the number of data we have.
Interesting.
This market is completely underdeveloped and underserved worldwide. Right?
Yeah.
So we have now people, instead 1 or 4 people we have, and I just read the statistics from the US, we have more than 50% of people with anxiety disorders and depression because of COVID.
Yeah.
More than 50%, right? So
crazy.
Maybe that's a US phenomenon, but I assume that's kind of similar in many countries. Right? We have a shortage of mental health practitioners, 1 to 1,000, 1 practitioner to 1,000 patients.
Wow.
And in most of the countries, 50% of more than 50% of countries is 1 to 100,000.
Yeah.
So people actually just waiting for months to getting an appointment or getting help in any shape or form. If they can get help after 3 or 4 months waiting time, they cannot afford it.
Yeah.
So we have to really, tackle that from the beginning, which we do, because in our marketplace you can offer, free hours, you can offer, discounts, you can offer a lot of stuff, so people can get the help they can afford.
Yeah. So if someone, a mother, for example, had a child with a mental health issue or something that she was worried about, how would she go? Would she go to your website, and sign up there, or how does it work?
Perfect question, thank you. So we have basically mirrored the patient journey, right? So our journey, to be honest, because I'm the first customer of the platform.
Of course, yes.
So usually you observe symptoms from the patient, right? So or the patient himself or maybe a loved one observe the symptoms, and you don't know a diagnosis so far. So that's what most people start, right?
Yeah.
And that's why we have on our website a button which calls diagnostic.
Yeah.
And you click on that, and what you will find is you will find a couple of thousand people who have a medical degree, a medical doctor or psychiatrist in 17 different countries. So you can then select from languages and all the kind of things. You can narrow that down to what you're looking for. And then basically you can contact them, because that's people who are allowed by law to diagnose and also prescribe. Right? So that's the psychiatrist with a medical degree, a medical doctor. And then when you have a diagnosis, then it's the second part which comes to therapy, right? And then we have a button which is therapy. So when you know what you have, you click that button, right? And then you say bipolar disorder as an example. And then you will see, I think we have 178,000 therapists right now and practitioners.
Wow, that's amazing.
All these countries, and they have different kind of approaches and therapy approaches, and focus on younger or mid-age or older folks. And some have a language, all they speak different languages, and so on and so on. So you can narrow that down to what you need. That's for the therapy, and for that, this is exploding right now because there's so many people who are offering great stuff. So that's one. And then we have, when you're there in the process, and you feel, I'm actually, not bothered really well much every single day, but here's the thing, I have some anger issues because always, my teenage daughter is trying to get me to a point, where I explode, and this is something I would like to work on, right, to improve myself, right? Or,
I think all teenage girls do that to their parents.
I know, but sometimes we are all humans. We would love to control that kind of emotion, right?
Yeah.
and they talk as long as they can until they get you explain.
Yeah.
So anyway, so what you do is you try to improve, and there are many ways. People say, hey, I'm probably not sick right now, but I would love to improve the one or the other way. That's why we have a button improvement, where there is literally 200,000 plus options to improve.
Yeah. Wow.
Right? And then there's another thing, is what we realized is when I raised the questions in London, and everyone raised his hand and said, I would love to help with my own money. And then we said, okay, what if you could, right?
Mm-hmm.
What if you could buy, let's say, a voucher or gift card for your friend or for your colleague or for your family member, right? And then you can buy it, you can email it to them, and you can say, you can make a picture from yourself or with your friend and say, hey, we want you to get better.
Yeah.
Right? And then there's this gift card, which is whatever, from $50 to no limit. You can name any number, right? And then this is automatically sent to via email or via text or whatever you want to do to the patient and say, hey, I care about you and I want to help you. And that voucher is good for all services on the platform, for everyone. We believe that is that's the way how people want to act.
Yeah.
And they're using it already, so it's because they want to help and they want to show their appreciation for the person, and they just want to help.
It's really nice.
People are actually that good.
And I think also it will help you develop the system to make it, to incorporate all these other things as well, which will then start to mean that you will get more data points, you'll be able to do more predictability with it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
It is really important that we get a lot of vouchers out so that we can improve even more. That's amazing.
Exactly. So the overall headline is, we want to get them the best mental health worldwide. Yes. So that's our slogan, and that will never change.
Yeah.
And there's different kind of ways you can improve that to get there. But that's the first steps we do at the moment. It's live, it's online, you can go to it, you can start doing it. And we need help.
Yeah, okay.
We need help on any level possible to grow that.
Yeah, I know the costs involved in what you're doing, so I know it's a very costly exercise that you're doing. So yeah, you really do need as much funding if you can get it, but also, I like the fact, everyone in AI tends to go for venture capital funding, which is great, but you don't always get it. And when you've got a mission as important as what you're doing, I like the fact that, you're not waiting around for the funding, you're doing something to actually raise funds that are helping people with the funds, but also it's a way that you can actually fund what you're trying to finish with what you're doing, get it to that next level. So exactly. I understand.
There are different ways to raise money. This crowdfunding way, obviously, because we have so many patients and loved ones who want to be involved in some shape or form. But also, I love venture funding in corporate venture funding is a huge upcoming thing right now. So
that's interesting because there are lots of pharmaceutical companies that have venture arms, and a lot of the pharmaceutical companies in this space in mental health have venture arms like Glaxo, etc. So that's something to put the feelers out about, because it's a very good synergy with a company that's got a portfolio of products in this space to really start to look at this, because it will help them firstly with their clinical trials, it will help them niche their product to help the right patients with the products that they've got. It's got a lot of benefits for the pharmaceutical company, as well as for you developing this to the best it can be to help the most number of people.
And it's a two-way street, like I said, right? And with that, the two-way street is they can help us. Any corporate venture capital can help us to reach out to customers and tell them here's an opportunity how you can get help actually, and you can get help not only with the 6% accuracy, you can actually get help with a higher probability.
That's a really interesting point. So, do you have, for example, a case study that you could discuss of someone who used this and what kind of outcome they got compared with traditional approaches?
We have many anecdotal cases right now, but we are against communicating that anecdotal approach as a proof of our business case, because we argue that actually anecdotal evidence is not solid science.
So,
and you don't want to be in the same kind of boat like everyone else who is touting, and saying, hey, you found that new kind of thing. And then I'm asking, okay, so how many was in the control group? And you say 17 in one and 24 in the other. And I said, okay, come back when you have 1 million in each.
Yeah. So are you working on creating that rigor in terms of measurement of results?
Yeah, but the thing is, even in that early stage, think about it, right? So let's say you're overweight, just from the sake of an example. So what you do is to control it as you hop on your weight scale every morning or every evening, right? So because that's vital sign that the data you need, right? Yeah. Does it help you to analyze why you're overweight? No, it doesn't. But you still need the weight scale to understand.
Tell you which direction you're going in.
What's the development? And whatever you do, is that helping or is that not helping? Right? Yeah. And that is the first step we are offering to the patient. So there is an add value we are huge from. Because rather than just connecting, what we give you immediately is the data, so you can analyze the trends.
Nice. Okay. Interesting. And so what are your plans for the future with this?
I'm committed for the next, 10, 15, 20 years, whatever it takes to get there. This is a huge undertaking, and I think it will never stop. People always have mental health problems, and it will never stop. The world is crazy. Every single day we see how crazy it can be. And people really need help. Honestly, it's on any level. And I don't name people here, but on any level, they really need help. Yeah.
And it is such an important, it's worse now, I know, that with COVID, a lot of people are really suffering, but it's such an important thing in general. If you save one life, that's such a huge thing. And I just think this is such an important thing. So I can understand why it's your mission for the next, as long as it takes, really.
Yeah, I'm not in for the short run game here. And just to make it clear, is I have businesses, and I build businesses, I sold businesses, but for that I'm hanging in. Yeah, because this is something. This is really a mission. This is a long-term mission. Yeah, I want to see the fruits of that. That, and it will take probably 5, 10, 15 years.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much. I've really found this amazing, and I'm so impressed with what you guys are doing. It's such a need, and I hope that a lot of the people watching this will get involved, because it's important to, as you said, everyone knows someone who suffers. So well done. Amazing. I'm so impressed. Really, really impressive work that you're doing. So thank you for sharing that with us.
I thank you for making it a point and helping to promote it, because so many people need it. Yeah. And every one of us, I'm not important, but all of us together are very important. So I'm really happy and thankful for the opportunity here to talk with you and to talk about such a topic like that.
Thank you so much. And I look forward to speaking to you again about all of this and seeing how this develops. Maybe we could do a follow-up interview in a year, and hopefully, we can look at how far it's come in a year. Fingers crossed we can get a lot of traction on this.
Yeah, I hope that we can continue working together and developing that great opportunity. Really, I feel you are passionate about the same thing, and
Yeah.
that's all about being passionate about something, right?
Yeah,
Changing the world
absolutely.
needs a lot
Absolutely.
of people who are passionate, and I feel you are one of these person, and I really thank you for being there and helping.
You're very welcome. And I think that a lot of people watching will be just as passionate. So hopefully we can get some good results from this interview.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you.